All right, we're back here. Last round of the Swiss incoming. Mason Clark with me, Jill Izzet here for Nerd Rage Gaming. We've got some good names for you, some good matchups coming up. We've got Green again, but we're playing Pioneer. That's going to happen a lot. We've got Piper Powell against Cain Rianhard on the primary match. Cain Rianhard actually figures prominently in my Pioneer history from the Phoenix Pro Tour a couple of years ago, the last event before the coronavirus lockdown. I played Cain Rianhard in the match to qualify for the Pro Tour Finals for the actual other event, Pro Tour Finals event, which was memorable for me since I won. But it was a very close match, and he handled it well. I mean, he was good sportsmanship and everything, because obviously playing a match like that matters to you. You don't want to lose, but certainly he acquitted himself well, and it was actually a very close match. And you said you've have experience with him in Pioneer as well?
Yeah, Cain is a friend of mine, and they are very, prominent. If you played the SCG Tour, especially in like 2019, 2018, Cain was someone you saw on the leaderboard all the time. Yeah. Also consistently do well on Moto, just like our other person in the feature match here, Piper, we'll talk about in a second. But I've been paired against Cain a bunch of events, and it's funny, I was going to mention it. It's actually the one format Cain and I haven't been paired in. I think we've played 4 times, and we've hit every format but Pioneer. And so we have to have the tiebreaker. So I'm hoping to run into Cain in a Pioneer event sometime soon. But yeah, Cain, big fan, by the way, of the Izzet Phoenix deck, and a big believer in this deck. I was talking to Cain last night, actually, after our finals, and was very happy going today to be playing Izzet Phoenix, and feels very good about this matchup.
Okay. All right. Well, they're going to be playing Piper Powell this round on mono green. So players looks like they're shuffling up, still getting ready to go to get things rolling.
But by the way, Piper Powell, one of the most dominant players in NRG history.
Yeah.
Piper's only missed top 8 of one NRG event ever that she has played in, and I believe she got 9th in that event. So Piper is someone that when you get paired against the NRG circuit, you need to be very much aware of what's going on. And, she did top 8 the event yesterday. Unfortunately, did lose in the first round of top 8, but she's looking to keep that streak alive today.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's on the table here. It's players at 4-2 playing for an outside chance. If breakers go their way, we'll see what happens. Cain Rianhard, Piper Powell, Izzet Phoenix, Green Devotion, tier 1 deck. Izzet Phoenix definitely a tier 2 deck, and actually has kind of come back a lot in the last couple weeks online. The results have really picked up for Izzet Phoenix.
Yeah, we saw Noah Strassler, Noah, our world champion, dominate the mocks. Sawyer, I should say, sorry. And he and Carvalho both came in with Phoenix, and it really showed people like, hey, if you build a deck in this way, you can beat mono green. And you kind of lose game 1, but game 2 and 3, you're really prepared for that matchup. And it has totally changed the game because people love the Phoenix deck. As we joked about earlier, people rather have agency than win the game, and the Phoenix deck gives you the most agency of any deck in the format.
All right, so things kick off here with an elf eating a fire impulse, and Cain continues to develop with Ledger Shredder. What interests me so much about Izzet Phoenix is there, even still after months, there doesn't seem to be a consensus on Ledger Shredder versus Thing in the Ice versus Crackling Drake. I mean, Crackling Drake is definitely the less common of the 3, but there are people running all play sets of all 3 of those options alongside their Phoenixes.
Yeah, it's one of those things where we talked earlier about maybe like metagaming on what your removal spells are and your control deck. It's kind of like the same that here with the threat. So we see Cain, they're rocking one Thing in the Ice this weekend. I know in the past, Cain's gone as many as 3 since Ledger Shredder's printing, but you kind of get to pick the games you want to play. And that is the kind of the big draw to this Arclight Phoenix deck for a lot of players. Just have that customizable game plan.
Yeah. All right. So the frame rate for our commentator view has slowed down considerably. Chat, if you can let us know if you're still seeing a clean image, we'll just run with this and it'll be okay. If we need to make a change, we'll look into that. But Cain in here with a Phoenix already alongside the Shredder, so a good healthy start for the flying team here. And Piper Powell's got some work to do.
Yeah, and this is one of the advantages of playing Shredder. You do get those earlier Phoenix draws when you kind of hit the jackpot of having a bunch of early spells like Cain had this game.
All right, here's a Kiora. And like we were saying, Kiora basically has so much loyalty, he can never die. Even here, it still looks safe.
Yeah, it would actually require a lot of work, maybe like a hard cast to Arclight Phoenix to actually even get close to killing it, which is very funny to think about.
Okay, Piper.
Cain is someone who I would say is very methodical too. So when you see Cain play quickly and precisely, typically
Mhm.
the play feels you'll think that's a play that Cain thinks is obvious. Otherwise, you'll kind of see this where Cain will take a second, double check everything, and really do the work, not make sure any percentage points. And that's something that I'm sure you can attest to as well. We see from the highest level of Magic players, and that really like separates people.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you make what seems like the obvious plays quickly, and then you save all your thinking time for a couple big moments. And 5 damage come across on Kiora.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Piper here is a little low on stuff, but able to resolve a Cavalier of Thorns.
Yeah, and this is really this is the roadblock. This is the creature that Piper wants. I mean, Old Growth Troll is great in a lot of matchups, not so much here, but Cavalier stands strong.
Yeah, and this is kind of too what we're thinking about, like when we get to postboard versus this game. Postboard, Kane's going to have like 6 or 7 spells specifically to answer Cavalier of Thorns, and this kind of draw is good enough. While in this game, Kane's going to have to like maybe Lightning Axe and Fiery Impulse as Cavalier just for it to get something back, like a Storm of the Festival. So Kane's in some real trouble, despite having, by all accounts, an amazing first 3 turns of the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all right. Pieces of the puzzle to draw here. I mean, maybe, things are just going to get away from them a little bit here, but maybe you can set up a time walk turn in the future. Maybe you can find, like you're saying, 2 removal spells to deal with this Cavalier, which is, a painful way to operate, but you got to do what you got to do sometimes.
Yeah, and it looks like Kane's having to think about, we have a Treasure Cruise pulled up. That's probably going to be one of the cards taken. That card's really strong, so it's hard to not see that go. But Kane kind of valuing, okay, do I need this Spell Pierce? Piper is a little low on lands, or do I need the Spikefield Hazard to combo with something like Lightning Axe to actually kill this Cavalier? And notably, Spikefield Hazard will exile the Cavalier, so it gets around that problem we talked about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Spikefield Hazard, in case you don't know, and my closest friend played a bunch of Spikefield Hazard and then had it pointed out that it exiles because he didn't know either. It does exile, and we'll take the Cavalier with it if it is involved in the damage to finish it off, which is very relevant facing Cavalier. That is a pretty strong death trigger.
Yeah, it's honestly part of the problem with beating the mono green deck is so often Cavalier presents this huge buy that even if you can answer or find some different threat, even if you didn't answer one earlier, milling 5 is just so many cards. And if you haven't found a threat already, what are the odds you're going to keep missing?
Yeah. Okay, so Cain, I believe, has Cruise as well as Temporal Trespass in hand, so has to choose what to use the graveyard for here. Trespass obviously not castable this turn, but actually maybe I was wrong. Maybe those are more pieces.
Yeah, I think it was at least one of them that was a piece of the puzzle. I think you might be right. One of them might be Temporal Trespass, but we're resolving our connive here as we get rid of the Fiery Impulse.
Okay. And Spikefield Hazard just takes down Kiora instead. And then Piper, I paused for a second there, and I think the question was probably, well, this isn't a creature. Does it still get exiled or not? And actually, I wasn't sure either.
Yeah, it looks like it does. And that is big. The combo, the easiest version of it requires 2 Kiora, 2 Karn, which is funny to say the easiest version just needs 4 cards and 8 Devotion. But some of them need to be in the graveyard. So having this exiled, it could mean that Kane can buy another turn or 2, and that could be all Kane needs when you combine cards like Temporal Trespass into the mix.
Mm-hmm.
However, Piper does have keyword, my creature is big. And
yes.
That's going to be good for her.
Yeah, but not as much mana as Devotion would often like to have. I mean, we're sitting on just 5 total mana a turn after a Cavalier. That's less than expectation, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
And now Piper is, I believe, consulting the sideboard here.
Yeah. I wonder why Piper would do that. There's probably no reason. Maybe, she's just wanting to admire the cool art she has on her cards.
That's absolutely must be it. I'm sure Kane isn't reading anything into this at all.
Yeah.
I remember a story from the past I actually watched this happen. This was at a Grand Prix, and David Humphreys, who is now, I believe, the head of R&D at Wizards, was playing, and he had a wish card. And back then, you weren't allowed to look at your sideboard during games. So he called a judge and asked for the oracle text of a card in his own sideboard to make sure it did what he thought it did.
That's funny. That's so sick. Yeah. Yeah, and Piper kind of is playing through the turn. Just like we mentioned with Cain, Piper is another one of those players who's going to think through the whole turn when things get a little complicated. And when the plays are fast and obvious, Piper is just going to slam execute that. And we see her do that all the time. As you know, she's kind of decided, all right, Old Growth Troll into Karn is the line for me.
Yeah, when the Old Growth Troll is just actually free, that's a
Mhm.
nice deal. And yeah, Karn comes in here. Cain conniving.
We
And
call
then,
that Dark Ritual, by the way. That's Old Growth Troll's nickname.
yeah. Shouldn't it be like Bright Ritual or Nature's Ritual or something? But okay,
Yeah,
Ritual works. Yeah.
Troll Ritual.
Sure, there you go. That's good.
Yeah, Twitch chat really sympathizes with that one. So we do see a minus happening here. I wonder if we're going to see Tormund script. Worth noting, by the way, Piper, another friend of mine, also good friends with Cain. These two have worked on Phoenix together a lot, and Cain has worked on green a lot. So both players, I would say, are masters of each archetype. So Piper and Cain are not going to get caught off guard and probably even know each other's full 75s as well. So you're going to see a lot of counterplay around things. You're going to see Piper know, like, I'm going to have to take a risk here, or, hey, if I Tormund script you now, lights out. So it's going to see a lot of awesome games this round.
All right. I didn't actually see the wished card. Did you?
I think it was Cauldron. Piper kind
Okay.
of put it at the back of her hand, but I'm not 100% sure. It definitely wasn't Tormund script. I imagine we would have played it.
Right. All right. Here is another pieces. The graveyard is rebuilt. There's a Phoenix. There is a trespass, a couple charter course in hand for Cain, and a land. All right. A lot of options here.
Yeah, a whole bunch.
No lightning axe, though, so still difficult to deal with the troll.
It is.
Although
like Piper. Oh yeah, yep.
I was going to say Spikefield Hazard plus Ledger Shredder now is pretty close because that Shredder is growing.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, the Spikefield Hazard even trigger the Shredder. So you might see a situation where we just maybe even preemptively fire a Spikefield Hazard off at something like Karn to kill it, and then trigger our Connive and get towards the Phoenix. Maybe we'll save it for the Cavalier. It's a little unclear.
All right, here is Trespass.
Yeah. Temporal Trespass, one of the Delve cards we never saw really see play until Pioneer, but has been a really, really important addition to our format. And kind of makes you wonder, I'm like, should I be playing this card in Modern ever? I have all the fetch lands, It's kind of nice.
Yeah, it is an impressive card, and it is curiously not so hard to cast for an 11 mana card.
Yeah, you would think it's undoable, but surprisingly easy.
So is there an attack here? With a free turn coming, Phoenix would die, Shredder would survive. What does Cain go at?
Yeah, Cain could also land Spikefield, Piper, or cast another cantrip and get back the Arclight and send both Arclights at Karn. Oh, looks like Cain is
Gonna split
sending
them up,
some at Piper.
Yeah. So Shredder at Piper and Arclight at Karn, I think. And yeah, and the Shredder gets, or the Arclight gets blocked.
Oh, okay, I get it. Cain's going to push damage. Cain knows that they cannot win this game through a long drawn out game. So they did the attack like this. That way, Cavalier blocks the Arclight Phoenix to preserve the Karn. Like, oh, you probably can't kill me. Meanwhile, Cain knows I'm really close to actually having lethal because of all my Arclight Phoenixes. And honestly, the Spikefield Hazard going face.
And another Temporal Trespass flips over.
If you just take Trespass, you can actually cast it again. Because you can choose to only take one. I guess you take Consider because you have the land drop for turn, and that's like up. You just bid whatever the top card is. But you are allowed to only take one off the thing. So you're going to see. And this is why these Time Walk effects are so powerful.
So let's see. This Consider can bin another card, and there's a land drop. Then would one of the Phoenixes be able to stay?
I think that'd be lethal. Because the Cavalier, I guess it depends on if you can bring back the Phoenix on the next turn. Because Cavalier can eat a Phoenix and then live another turn.
Yeah. Oh, Trespass here would be. I think it would have to eat at least a Phoenix.
Oh, is it even if we insta bin? Well, we do get the connive off the Ledger Shredder as well.
That's true. Yeah. All right.
Well,
we'll let Cain figure this out, and then we'll just watch what happens.
Yeah, we're for sure getting a Trespass. How many birds come along with that? That is the question. And it might just be that even if you have to lose all the birds, this Ledger Shredder is presenting a lethal attack on its own over the extra turn cycle. So you kind of just have to block.
There's a third Phoenix. If that Spike Hazard is still in hand, then that would do it.
Yeah, that's
No
game. And you
time
see
mark
Piper.
required.
Yeah, she knows it too. You know, as soon as Kane's like, hey, I have that land, Piper's like, all right, game 2 time.
Okay. Well, certainly
big upset.
Yeah, I was going to say that's kind of against expectation here. Kane picking up game 1.
Yeah, and shows, you know, Piper was on the play too with the mono green deck, which is typically the best place for that deck to be. But Kane knew this sort of thing with being friends with Piper, knew that they were playing the matchup and kept some interaction and did have that early pressure and was able to string it together in a very impressive fashion.
All right, let's take a look at some sideboards and specifically, well, we can go ahead and look at Cain Rianhard's deck. And you talked about gaining an awful lot against mono green. So let's go through that.
Yeah, so against mono green, we have 4 Disdainful Strokes that we can bring in, and we have 2 Abrades. You also have Spell Pierce, which I know some people like against mono green, some people don't. I don't actually know where Kane falls on that one, but we can easily see those first 6 cards in with the 4 Disdainful Stroke, the 2 Abrade. We mentioned the Stroke when watching George last round with Blue-White Control and how good that is against mono green. It is a lot better in this deck because you actually kill your opponent, and actually ending the game is very important. Despite, you know, feeling like a thing that Magic players don't care too much about originally, it is something that you need to do in order to win a round, surprisingly enough. And we see Kane coming in force, not messing around when it comes to this mono green matchup. And like I mentioned last night, Kane was feeling good about this matchup and really was only worried about Rakdos midrange. That is kind of the thing. And why you see 2 God-Eternal Kefnets in the sideboard.
Yeah, no, there's definitely some things here that are different from maybe the stock list. 3 Spikefield Hazards, those numbers have been kind of growing, I feel like, over time, but 3 is certainly on the extreme end. And yeah, the God-Eternal Kefnets, that's not a card we see very often either. All right, let's go ahead and look just for completeness at Piper's deck, even though we can assume that there's very little, if any, changes going on here.
Yeah, so I was watching, I saw Piper grab the sideboard because we can see them. It's a chance that Piper is bringing in Unlicensed Hearse. So sometimes you'll see this. We have Tormod's Crypt and Unlicensed Hearse in the sideboard. So sometimes you'll see players board in the overlapping cards in the mono green deck in order to actually find them sooner as a way to kind of have, you know, even more and more copies, because you have to resolve a card like Karn. And like we mentioned, Piper knows there's 4 Disdainful Strokes for Kane on the other side of the table. You see this happen a lot with Greasefang too, where you bring in Pithing Needle because once you have Karn in play, you don't need a needle. So a lot of little sideboarding things that actually do matter with mono green and kind of make or break it. But besides that, nothing else that's too exciting for Piper in the sideboard. Piper's playing 1 Teferi Slows the Sunset and 2 Lovestruck Beast. So Teferi Slows the Sunset might lead to some extra combo kills for Piper in this matchup.
Okay, let's go ahead and go back down to the table and see how this plays out. Players are presenting. And we'll, like you were saying, Piper Powell, one of the titans of the Energy series this year. And Cain Rianhard looking to play the spoiler this round.
Yeah, you know, this is a moment where for Piper, there's, you know, Piper is such a nice and great person, but, you know, I know that she does like that she has that kind of near pristine record. And I know she wants this. It's not just like, oh, well, if I lose, my friend's going to make it. Obviously, Piper will be happy if Kane wins. Not going to be mean about it. But Piper wants that W. These are competitors, you know, and she's going to want that from Kane. You know, I was thinking about the Spikefield Hazard from Kane that you were talking about too. One of the things I kind of like about that is Kane, it actually gets to play like a lower land count and have more lands that we can hit off pieces of the puzzle, which has always been kind of things where it's like you kind of want your pieces to be a divination, but sometimes your divinations need to hit lands. And so how many of these do you play? Oh, maybe 1. But Kane really being like, no, these are great against Llanowar Elf. And in the other matchups that are longer and I need more lands, I can take that time off.
No, and we talked last round about the channel lands and also the double face lands. I really like the direction that Wizards has gone over the last few years of allowing players to play more lands without flooding in later games. I think it just leads to much better gameplay. As we see right here, that's I don't know the backside of the card. Is that a Spike Hazard or is that
that's
just
a Spike Hazard?
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
So there we go. Right now, right off the bat, when there is an elf to be targeted, but Kane's like, well, my mana base requires this Spike Hazard to be a land, and there you go.
Yep. Yeah, great power cube is great responsibility for Kane there as we see Piper chugging on in with the fail rate of green like we talked about. The worst thing that happens is my deck has a bunch of big chunky creatures.
All right, another elf. And is that a Wolfwillow being held in hand?
I kind of thought that too, and it probably is the case that we're just playing this out to not trigger Connive. And
Sure.
we're holding
You're
this
right.
one, and the elf, has summoning sickness. So
Mhm.
Connive is also, all these looting effects get weaker as the game goes on in some ways because you just have less options. It's not like actual card draw things. So we're going to see Cain killing those things and get a little Connive action going and putting Thing to the Ice to the front of the discard.
Yeah, well, it is obviously a strong card. However, it is at its strongest on turn 2, and we are past that. And with Disdainful Stroke in hand and burning off all the elves, Cain maybe is looking Thing in the Ice and seeing that 0 power and like, yeah, I'm not interested.
Yeah, and race is on. Cain's not winning the race right now, but Cain does have those army of Disdainful Strokes. And if Piper can sneak something down, like maybe a Karn or anything like that, now would be a good time to start the race. And looks like she is going to deploy that Wolfwillow Haven. Looks like Kiora Wolfwillow are the last 2 cards. Just kind of thinking if it's worth giving Cain that extra damage because you are racing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Decision says yes.
Yeah, and you see Piper too. Piper knows Cain's not going to miss it. Let's just trigger this. It happens. We all agree. And now Cain's got a little bit more to the race, but now Piper actually has some good draw steps. By taking that chance there, we can draw things like Cavalier to play, where before we were just actually somehow short despite having all this mana.
Yeah, and Cain's like, tired of this exchange. I'm just gonna hang back.
Yeah, and we were talking about how it's a race, or Cain's like, nah, if I have a 3/5 in play. Kiora, the Lovestruck Beast, is going to trigger Connive if Piper goes for it now, but does give Piper a redraw.
Right, and it's also frustratingly under the Disdainful Stroke that Cain has in hand.
Yeah, and Piper's aware of that too. Piper is on top of it and preparing for the RC as well. She won one of the Moto PTQs early on into the season, and yeah, here she is. She's just gonna looks like playing around something like Spell Pierce potentially, by just hard casting Lovestruck Beast, making sure she can get it down this turn.
Yeah, nice work indeed. And well, Cain with an abundance of everything in hand, really. I guess no red card, no removal spells, but all kinds of card drawing, counters, time walk.
Yeah, and Cain going into the tank. It looks like Cain was considering discarding Disdainful Stroke right away.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. And that's obviously not maybe the most obvious choice, but it does make sense if, Piper's, empty-handed and he doesn't want to hold up mana. If they don't want to hold up mana next turn, then now's the time to get rid of it. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's also it's such a weird thing too, right? Where if Piper sees the Disdainful Stroke discard, Piper's probably going to think, well, there's another stroke in hand, especially if you snapped it off like that. But also, what's Piper going to do? Let you just sit there and not do anything? And so we're just going to see a pass of the turn, though. Cain would love some lands. The Phoenix deck, much like Mono Green, actually loves to have a lot of lands.
All right, consider dumps an opt and finds an Otawara. Okay. Maybe Cain. Interesting. This Lovestruck Beast actually can't attack.
Yeah.
So once the Shredder grows a little bit, and if Cain finds anything else to play to have to block or to increase the race, because while they're trading even right now, Cain is down considerably in the life points. Let's see. Here is a cruise. That's call that significant.
Yeah, that is a good way to describe Treasure Cruise. And once again, Cain is like, do I really even need this Disdainful Stroke? Decides against it again, but is telling, I think a lot of players should be really hesitant to even consider discarding a sideboard card.
Yeah. Okay, 3 cards in hand, and I don't think a land was drawn right there, but we had the island already earlier in the turn, so land drop is assured.
And now it looks like Cain's deciding, do I race? Do I lower the shields? And because Cain drew another Ledger Shredder and getting both of those in play, you win the race pretty easily.
Yeah, the risk that Cain has to consider here is if an elf is drawn, if this Ledger Shredder attacks and an elf is drawn, then that's a lot of damage coming in.
Yeah. Agreed. Also, what if Piper's slow rolling, some sort of card that she wants to play, and I lower my shield to the Disdainful Stroke, and I just lose to Storm the Festival for 2 Cavaliers.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there is one Cavalier in hand.
Yeah, and yeah, Piper is really kind of wanting to like weirdly hit something that can turn the beast on, but probably doesn't even want to play right now, as we see. Yeah. Cain rewarded for keeping the Disdainful Stroke for so long.
And looks like we just... Okay, love titles updated there for a moment and went back to where they were. So I think we're good at 18 to 12.
Yep. And it looks like Cain is going to start off with that Ledger Shredder and then start conniving away.
Yeah, and this looks so strong. I mean, 4 cards in the graveyard right now. Treasure Cruise is guaranteed, even if with no additional cards, just with all this conniving.
You know what? I think Cain has 2 more Disdainful Strokes in here. I think those are the cards in the back.
Oh, wow. You're right.
I thought they were Charter Courses because Chart was on top before.
Yeah, I did too. Yeah.
Okay. Cain
Well,
wanting to discard Disdainful Stroke makes a lot more sense now. I was just like, dang, Cain really thinks about everything.
If they were sitting on the playset, then yeah, pitching the first one seems pretty understandable.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That makes... Okay. Yeah, a real moment of like, wow, I just don't get it. We are going to see the Kiora die here. And yeah, now we know Cain has 2 more Disdainful Strokes. Piper's best draws are weirdly probably just more Love-Struck beasts, and just turn those ones on.
An elf, even a lair that I guess they could activate as a 1/1 and then send in the Love-Struck. Okay, here's a Karn. So we know Cain can choose a card at random and probably counter that.
Yeah. We just have to make sure we connive and keep one of these strokes. And we also found Spell Pierce.
Sure.
Oh my goodness. And yeah, that card is probably dead here. So you have to decide, is Spell Pierce me a +1/+1 counter, or am I going to hold the strokes? And with the way Cain's been playing, I think, we're going to see other cards get discarded, and just now we're going to probably keep the Spell Pierce for a +1/+1. And looks like Cain did bring in the Spell Pierce.
All right. Karn is out of here, and Piper may be soon to follow, as this is getting a little out of hand here. These shredders are sizable, not one-shotting yet, but those time walks are looming.
Yeah, and Piper's picking up her cards.
Yeah,
she knows it's over. Cain had so many connives there and so much card advantage. She just has like a land in hand too, so pretty reasonable there. So well played there from Cain, though. Kind of a convincing fashion in some ways.
Yeah, no, that looked really good. Looked one side. Those counters are obviously strong, and even with game 1, even with the Cavalier out there, I mean, that's kind of like the card, right? And it wasn't enough.
Yeah, Cain was able to just get enough early pressure and then chain those time walks like we talked about, and was able to kind of forget about card advantage and just be like, okay, I'm going all in on these next 3 turns. Was able with, a couple of dig spells, able to find the second time walk, but that's all that Cain needed and set up lethal. And that is, one of the advantages of a card like Ledger Shredder. It lets you kind of sculpt those games. And we see, maybe that's why Cain's choosing to play 4 Shredder over 4 Shredder and 1 thing over, a more of a different mix. Maybe Cain can give us some insight to that here in a second as well. Cain is coming down for an interview, but yeah, done really well there. And it's not like Piper had bad draws or did anything wrong. She just kind of had a lot of it, but Cain just had a little bit more of it.
Yeah, or a lot more in that last game.
Yeah,
that was pretty convincing. It turned out, and you said though that the Sideboard games would likely go in Cain's favor, most of the time. So while we're waiting to get this set up, I got cut off when I tried to ask you this earlier. But so if you had an event you cared about tomorrow, what format would you want to play?
Probably Modern. Okay. I like Pioneer enough, and I'd probably just play like the Green Machine and take my chances for it. But I really like Modern. I have a lot of experience in the Modern format, and so the Karuga 5-color decks are pretty exciting.
All right, sounds like we are ready to go. So, Cain Rianhard, congratulations!
Thank you.
That looked maybe more convincing than we expected. Not so for you, though. You were confident going in.
Yeah, I think the matchup is pretty good for Phoenix if
Okay.
both players know what's up. And like I came a little extra prepared for green also, just because it seems to be very popular at these events.
Mhm.
But
Okay,
even
so
preceding that, I think it's
right.
pretty relatively Phoenix favored.
Okay.
Mhm.
So 5-2 now, probably needing some tiebreaker good fortune. But if we're running this back again, is it Phoenix is the deck for you still?
Yeah, I think I maybe would not have metagamed my list quite as hard as I did, but it's what I'm most comfy with right now. So
Yeah, you mentioned earlier in these tournaments, kind of talking about the energy circle, we do see a lot of mono green. The RC is coming up in 2 weeks here. I don't want to leak too much of your prep or anything, Kane, but is that something where maybe going to the RC you might not have, like in this, for example, in this tournament you had the 4 strokes and the 2 abrades. Would you maybe like cut down some of that, or is there other ways that you were kind of going extra heavy on green?
well, the braids aren't for green, but like playing the full 4 Disdainful Stroke is pushing pretty hard. Like usually
Mhm.
you'll see people play 3 and like maybe gusts, or you could like split your spell pierces with negates, things like that, which benefit the other matchup slightly more. Like I lost to red green vehicles earlier, and I would have liked to have the gust there, but so
Okay.
it's like
Yeah.
mostly the disdainful strokes I'm like talking about,
Sure. Right.
Makes
juicing
sense.
those numbers.
Yeah, and we see some variations. One thing that I noticed, going back, over the evolution of the format, it seems like Spikefield Hazard has increased the number. We see you're running 3, which seems like I don't think there's anybody running more than that, and I don't even think 3 is too common. So, do you have any comments on that? How that enables? We saw you lead off with one in play there as a land in game 2.
Yeah, unfortunately, like I didn't draw land, so I had to play a
Yeah.
tap. But it's just if it weren't for the stringent mana cost of Trespass, I would just play 4 Spikefield Hazard because of
Okay.
Llanowar Elves. Um, it's just like you just can't have 2 mono red lands in play and Trespass combo on turn 5, so it's a little bit of a limiting factor. But it's just the like best positioned double face card, I think,
Mhm.
with just like 8 elves is just like such a strong recipe,
Right.
and you have mono green and red green, and
So you
then
you find it more useful than Seagate Restoration, for example.
yeah, that's a card I've played in the past
Mhm.
because it's like if you want a land specifically to hit off pieces versus like a spell that is sometimes a land you hit off pieces, then Seagate Restoration was ideal because you want like more blue mana there. But it's just like Spikefield is more valuable for the spell that it is,
Mhm.
and you get to cheat on your mana base a little bit.
Right.
100%. So outside of the tournament, obviously you're doing really well here. It looks like we might be seeing you in our top 8. This would be pretty exciting. How's the weekend going though for your energy? This is your first energy, right?
Yeah, I've had a lot of fun. Like
Good.
it's just completely filled with homies. So
Mhm.
and
Maybe that should be our new advertising campaign.
full of
Come to,
homies.
come to Nerd Rage. It's full of homies. That's all. We'll put that on
Yeah,
the banner.
mostly shout out to Rodney for making this possible. Everybody loves Rodney.
Yeah, Rodney normally providing the cards for all our players, providing you planes this time. When will Rodney stop? Maybe provide the venue for energy next time. Take care of that for us.
But
Well,
Well, we'll see what happens.
I would not push the luck too much,
Sure.
well, seems like you're enjoying yourself. 5-2, maybe top 8.
Yeah,
Good luck on the dice
hopefully.
roll there. Yeah, it looks a little iffy, but we'll see. Anyway, glad you enjoyed your weekend, and yeah, we'll see you next time out. Maybe in Atlanta in a couple weeks.
All right, yeah. Have a good time with the rest of the cast.
All right, thank you.
Will do.
All right, I don't know that we have a backup match ready. We do. Okay, it's ready to go. Let's roll it. We've got. All right, I think we're gonna watch what was table 5 this round. So this is, I think, a win in for top 8, as
Mhm.
opposed to the match we just watched, which was a win in and hope for top 8. This one I think is a win in and in. I believe we're gonna see. Well, we got some mislabeled decks. So players having fun with us. So we'll go ahead and see what we've got. Let's go ahead and roll the tape and find out what happens. This took place over the last half hour or so. Daniel Kristoff versus Ash Laras. 2 players, 5-1s. Mono Blue Spirits versus, what is this other deck?
This is the Karuga Fires deck.
All
so
right.
yeah, this is the the new hotness in Pioneer. This deck looks just like in the modern version to kind of cheat on things that cost less than the Karuga mana cost, so 2-in-1 things with stuff like Bone Crusher Giant. You might see some Twin Shot Snipers. There's a lot of different things you can do there, and then looks to combine that with Fire's Invention, and then some of the new rafts are kind of synergized well with that. So sometimes we see Temporary Lockdown. In this case, we're seeing Supreme Verdict. But Ash here, a known memer, put their deck list as Absent Aristocrats instead. So you got us this time, Ash. Yeah, this deck, very good.
Yeah, this is interesting stuff. This is also, I feel like, one that came up within the last 3 or 4 weeks. I don't think, at least I played a lot of Pioneer, and I did not see this before that. Kind of we're just moving through the list of companions, apparently. And,
and this companion has shot up the power rankings. We saw it in Modern, with after the banning of Yorion, players were like, oh, well, Rhinos has shown us we can play a lot of cards that interact early enough to keep you alive. What if we took a more controlling route? And then Karuga is a perfect payoff for that game. So we see that here and playing against Mono Blue Spirits. So your deck full of all 3-drops and higher might have some issues against this tempo deck.
Yeah, it certainly could. And there are powerful cards in this Karuga deck, but like you're saying, they're all expensive kind of by definition. But we've got Cavalier of Flame. We have 4 Kenrith the Returned King, 4 Omnath. So really, I guess we're kind of redundant as far as the big cards. It's the cheap stuff that matters that Ash is going to want to find. And there's a nice one.
Yep. Joe, we've been playing the Triumph game all weekend. Do you know what Triumph that is?
Oh, let me see. That looks like Rogren?
Yeah, the Teamer Triumph.
Oh, Ketria.
Okay. Oh, got then.
I know the names. But I may not know the
art,
all the details. But yeah,
sure.
Here we go. Yeah, and also of course this is not the clean original, bare bones artwork, which is the ones that we all like and enjoy on coverage. All right,
that's my addition to the NRG team there, Joe. Is I know the promo art, so that's the real value I add.
That is a key element. We're gonna have to bring you back on. All right, so we've got, after the Leyline Binding at a 4-mana discount, we've got Fable of the Mirror Breaker on curve, and the Spirits deck. It is certainly the low-powered deck in this pairing, so it needs to not waste any time getting damage through.
100%. Yeah, and that deck.
Whoa!
2 Kinriths gone. The thing about this deck that's really interesting is once Fires is in play, a lot of the Spirit counter spells will do nothing. We're going to have to get like 3 or 4 of them in order to counter one spell, which is not a winning proposition. So there's a lot of emphasis on trying to actually, make sure you answer these things early and not let a Fire's Invention get resolved. But also a lot of emphasis on Ash to kind of slam, something like that, if you think that's what you have to do.
So we saw here Shacklegeist and company tap down the token from the Fable to prevent the treasure, which, this Karuga deck, all the treasures it can handle, it can use. There is no limit to the amount of mana this deck can eat up. So Daniel putting a stop to that. And here we have a Fires.
100%. And we're going to see Geistlight Snare countering the Fires.
Yeah, you don't want... they don't even need the treasures if you let the Fires resolve. So you definitely want to put a stop to that. Kind of the late game or the mid game value proposition for this Fires Karuga deck is just pick up Karuga, have Fires, cast it for free, cast either a Cavalier or a what's the name of the white creature that's in the graveyard? I forgot.
Kenrith.
Kenrith, right. Give your guys haste and then just blow the crap out of the opponent all at once, which is certainly something that I've seen happen.
Yeah, and it's something that is a real strength of this deck against something like Mono Green. We talk about Mono Green. We've seen it a lot today. You answer all this stuff, but then you have to win in time. And that was the difference between George and Cain, right? Cain, they were able to answer this stuff and kill Piper before she had time to rebuild. Not the same for George and given Nathan infinite time to rebuild. This deck, Kenrith plus the Cavalier Flames is a lot of damage, especially when Flexion of Kiki-Jiki gets involved.
Right. Okay, here comes Namath. Daniel, do you have a counter? I suggest you do. There it is. Lofty Daniel takes that down. All right, Daniel's empty-handed.
Yeah, Curious Obsession, probably Daniel's best draw.
Yeah, Spectral Sailor drawing cards for 4 mana. I mean, do what you got to do, but that's not super.
Yeah. Our Kingdom for a Spell Pierce off the top here. Yeah, you can level up the Ascendant Spirit at instant speed, so kind of a big get there.
Yeah, so multiple activated abilities here for Daniel available, and Ash determine whether attacking into this makes sense or not.
100%. Also, just want to make sure that nothing, the Spirit deck, sometimes it's win because it gets a little tricky. No problem, just take a second to double check your cards, make sure your opponent's cards do what you think they do.
Mm-hmm.
As we see a copy.
Yeah. Copy of the Fable token. And all right, 2 treasures incoming. If Daniel's going to block one of these, he wants to block the original one, not the copy.
Yeah, and we're going to see a level up with the Ascendant Spirit here.
Mm-hmm. That's a tough choice between drawing a card or not here, because obviously Daniel needs quite a bit.
Yeah, and Colossal Sky Turtle to return.
Get wrecked.
Yeah.
That's yeah.
Oh,
that's
my
a tough
goodness.
One. There you go. 2 mana channel. Return a creature to owner's hand, and that Ascendant Spirit is out of here. And here's another Fable, and this board's getting crowded.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're just untapping the one Fable token because it was a copy of a Kiki Jiki, so it's going to die anyways, and our turn's over. So it's going to see that happen here. And this is part of the problem when you play the tempo decks. If your opponent can get underneath you and sort of do this thing, the house of cards kind of falls apart, and that is so true for the mono blue deck in Pioneer.
All right, so Daniel's going to switch modes here and just get in on the attack for 3 damage. I don't want to call this one too early, but I don't like his chances.
Yeah, it's a rough race to win when there's 6 on the other side of the board, and a lot of extra mana being generated and a lot of extra card looking from the rummaging. But, Ash's cards, they do cost a lot of mana. So you might be able to, chain something together. Weirdly, Daniel maybe needed to draw another land to level up the Spirit twice to actually race.
Yeah. All right. Fable, and I think a land he discarded to the rummage for Fable the Mirror Breaker. Ash decides 2 is enough for this game. Don't need a third one.
Yep. And we've got a lot of treasure being made.
Yeah.
Fable the Mirror Breaker really making big waves in every format.
Yeah, that right from the start. Like this is not a card that took people, a few months to evaluate and decide, oh yeah, maybe this one's worth fitting to our decks. It's just, I feel like it was in half a dozen decks to start with, and then it's showing up more and more often as we go.
I have to agree. Looks like Ash has some card. Oh, a Ganjo.
Yeah, okay. The white channel land. How easy is it for Wizards to make a cycle and all of them see some play? Like, I feel like they're rarely are able to do as good a job as they did with these.
Yeah, it's really hard. I mean, the incentives are just really hard for a lot of players. Then, oh my goodness, do we have another one? Oh, we have Leyline Binding on the Ascendant Spirit to stop the Rattle Chains. But yeah, no, the channel lands, it's wild. Like the worst one's the black one, and that one's still really, really good.
Yeah.
It sees play in a lot of formats.
Yeah. No, they did excellent work there. Well above par. Because I feel like if 3 of them were playable and 2 of them were just like limited rares that people were like, oh crap, I didn't want this. That's still okay. And they ended up with 5 solid ones here. All right, Daniel. We need a lot out of you to make this game competitive here. And I think it's going to be tough to deal with all this.
Yeah, if we didn't draw a Lord here, this might be too big an ask. Because I think Ash has a Cavalier in hand. And we're also threatening the Fable the Mirror Breaker, copying Fable the Mirror Breaker. So if you can't provide lethal, it's going to be a rough spot to be.
Yeah, I've never even seen that.
Yeah, so if you at end of Daniel's turn, you have 2 fables. You can fable, make a copy. The new one will copy the original, and you just go, 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 go. So you make equal the amount of mana you have.
Yeah. Well,
So blocking won't be a winning strategy. But if Daniel rips a Lord.
Yeah, I mean, Ash is down to 6, and I kind of getting ahead of myself, just expecting this to snowball into a win, and it hasn't actually happened.
Yeah, and that's kind of the awkward part about these Karuga decks, right? Is you have a lot of ways to cheat on mana, but your cards still do cost a lot of mana, so it's gonna be hard to do it too much. And here's a Cavalier of Flames coming in, and Daniel has the counter. Yeah, if Daniel rips a Lord off the top, that's game.
Yeah, it's kind of stunning here, the way that all of these fables and such have not actually led to anything. I mean, it's been fables and removal, I guess, and that's really it.
100%.
Daniel has managed to keep the high damage threats off the board, giving himself chances to win here.
Yeah,
so go ahead.
I was gonna say, if Daniel drew a land, we can activate and draw a Lord and try and find Curious Obsession as well, because all of those are lethal.
Yeah.
Kind of exciting.
Whether or not Daniel wins this game, he navigated this well.
Yep. A good showing. And that is one of the new Curious Obsession variants. I don't think it combat research. I don't think it gives +1/+1.
Only to legends, I think.
Yeah, and so brutal moment there for Daniel. Daniel isn't gonna get an extra card and does have the Shackle Guys in order to kind of, keep some of this pressure at bay. But oh wow. Also a nice get for this deck, just another Curious Obsession, even if it is a little bit weaker.
Ash with a Kenrith in hand. How many treasures? 2, it looks like.
Yeah.
So what do we...
This feels like the final turn cycle, right?
Of the game, yes, I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think Ash is going to survive another turn. So it's can this deck win this turn? And well, depending on what Daniel's got.
Can Ash make enough mana to pick up Kruga, draw cards, find Leyline Binding, and then answer one of the 2 power creatures? Because then that wouldn't be lethal damage.
Right. I mean, that's asking a lot with 2 Leyline Bindings already on the board. But here is an attack. 1 treasure incoming.
Yeah, it looks like we are a little short of doing that and having mana up. So we also don't have a swamp yet. Yeah, it looks like Ash is attacking, and we were saying how the game kind of looked over for Daniel, but
yeah, you're saying we might have been wrong. I might have jumped the gun a little bit there.
Yeah, I was kind of with you. We do see Leyline Binding. Or Leyline Binding. Man. Oh, Kenrith.
And there's a counter.
Oh,
snare. It can be paid for, but that will use up all of Ash's mana.
Yeah, that's so huge.
Available.
Yeah, Ash had set up the Kenrith to gain 5 life with the white ability, but no more because of this counter spell. Wow, such a well-played game from Daniel.
Yeah, that was great. That was, I mean, really, that's what tempo decks are. I mean, they're supposed to be a little further along the race on, than it was that game. But counters on the key spells, chipping in for damage that's evasive, and it comes together. And I'm kind of stunned, and I'm sure that Ash is a little surprised, given all the stuff that happened there, that it didn't lead to a win.
Yeah, and that just kind of shows how well Daniel's been playing the deck too, because we were kind of holding back a little bit with our Shackle Guys and doing it, but Daniel knew, okay, can't do that anymore. Got to start pounding in, and then won with basically exact damage. So every point there mattered.
Right? Yeah, that was well navigated by Daniel. Okay, so Ash is going to have to, grab game 3 on the draw if it even gets to that point. And here's a Lord, which would have made things much easier for Daniel if it showed up last game.
Yeah, it's gonna be really hard to get through that. Leyline Binding, though, answers everything. So
yeah, it does.
Well,
You need a
that's
land
one of
here.
the more bigger gets, and honestly, the reason these
Yeah.
Karuga decks are really even able to exist is
Mhm.
cards like Leyline Binding.
Right. Yeah. All right. Ash clearly with multiple lands in play, choosing which one makes sense to develop with.
And there's a pass back here. You know, Daniel looks to have a good amount of lands, but has a couple counter spells like a Gust in hand and a Rattle Change, so has some play available to him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely wanting to get a clock on the board, but there's so many things in Ash's deck that you kind of don't want to let resolve. So getting the opportunity here, this is nice to get the Rattle Change down. Okay, well, it's not going to survive. So
Yeah, no
good
slip
effort,
out the
though.
backs here. Another Supreme Phantom. Okay.
Yeah, and allowing the Geistlight Snare to be turned on here is significant alongside what Lofty Denial, another creature land. So Daniel with tools here, certainly to work with. And Ash, as we know, most of Ash's cards there's no double spelling here.
Yeah, and I think Ash has more mana this game, but has less threats, which is not the exact recipe you want. We want something in between what we've had the last 2 games against this deck. And this, one of the reasons to play the Mono Blue Spirits deck is it beats up on the Mono Green deck. And the way the top ends of these decks play out is pretty similar, where you need to get something kind of big, and then that something will go the distance. But even one thing is often, too big of a problem, or not too hard of a problem for the Mono Blue deck to answer.
All right, Bonecrusher Giant jumps into play from the exile or from the adventure zone. Daniel's okay with that.
Yeah, I had thought we might have seen an answer to that just to get in their faces. It looks like Daniel has bigger plans.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, well, Bonecrusher, despite being quadruple the attacking power of the Daniel's creature, it still pales in comparison to some of the other threats. So holding onto the counters is understandable.
For sure. Good tactical decision from Daniel there, Pretty easy to snap it off like I was talking about. And it looks like Ash wants to start a race. I love when races start, Joe, because someone is right and someone is wrong.
Well, so I do like in general in Magic when two players have a conviction that's opposing. Yeah, and which just means because it's so many things are like, oh well, maybe they're both right, maybe you could argue either way, but no, someone's right and someone's wrong. And yeah, I enjoy those scenarios at any point in life, really. All right, so attack again, and here's an Otawara to reset it. This is a pretty low value Otawara, but
yeah, I wonder if this is at end of turn. Okay, it looks like it was. All right.
Okay.
So that does matter. Now
Yeah.
the Geistlight Snare costs a little more, and we don't get to attack in us for much on the next turn.
Mm-hmm.
Ash using all those lands, trying to figure out some way to work underneath Daniel's hand, because Ash knows that Daniel has to have a bunch of counter spells. There's nothing's happening for a lot of turns here.
Mm-hmm. Here's an Omnith with 2 up, which is sufficient for any of the counters. There's Geistlight Snare.
Yeah. Using it while the using's good.
Yeah. Yeah, that's certainly a problem when the counters go dead. We didn't get there last game.
And I think that's all 3 Faceless Havens for Daniel here, with the last one hiding out in hand. So, we could see a huge race if, Ash tries to go for something, taps out, might get chunked for 10 with these Faceless Havens.
Yeah, that's certainly something to keep in mind. And here is, all right, stomp to the face.
Yeah.
And Daniel's life total is dwindling.
And you can tell Daniel's a little tempted. Has that Lofted now, which, isn't a hard counter for much longer.
Mm-hmm.
And, these are the things that make or break the tempo games.
Yeah. Is there an Aethergeist in hand also? I mean, that would be a potential one to throw off too, because Ash may just not be interested in keeping around the Bonecrusher, but it does resolve. I guess. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think you're about to say, I think Daniel was maybe hoping to Aethergust the Bonecrusher on the way down so more mana gets spent.
Sure. Yeah. That would be reasonable. Kenrith is the draw. Another one of these. I mean, we have 6 land to play, and we're just 1 spell to turn. I guess Bonecrusher plus something is possible. And here it is. Daniel at maybe 6 now?
Yeah, I would say I believe Daniel's at 6 from the stomp and the attack. It is a time shifted match, so we can't quite fix that. But lots of now coming in here. It's gonna be pay 4, and kind of manage here.
Yeah.
Makes sense for Daniel, I guess, not to gust on the way back down since the stomp would be lethal. Oh, Karuga coming to hand.
Yeah, sure. Why not? You got a chance. You might as well pick it up. And yeah, Daniel is just, boy, yeah, there's the third Faceless Haven. And there's just not a lot going on here. Attacking for 1. I mean, this is, we, last game, Daniel looked a little behind and then caught up in 1. This game looks even more behind, even though there's less on the board.
Yeah, it's really kind of impressive. I guess Daniel's plan is that the Faceless Haven now checks the Bone Crusher,
Mm-hmm.
and then he can start racing after that and hopefully counter this spell and maybe able to fade a turn. Pretty close to lethal if we do that. Now, Ash doesn't know that if we play Karuga, it's going to get Aether Gust, and if we play Kenrith, it lives.
Yeah, that's funny. And here is Karuga.
And it makes sense, too, from Ash's perspective, right? Like, use the thing that I know. I don't even care about that much. It's just going to draw me 2 cards.
And now Ash has to make a decision.
Karuga, notably, a macro sage. Unsure how to become a macro sage, but Karuga is that.
Is there a micro sage running around?
There's a micromancer.
That's true. I know that too. Yeah, that's an exciting one. That card is done more work than I expected and constructed as well.
Yep. Really cool to see those weird cards make a big headway these days. Ash.
And a pass. Okay. Yeah.
Spectral Sailor, the draw. And I think we have 9 mana, so we do have, another counter spell potentially that we could draw off that.
Yeah, and this you're always looking for on, when you have on turn 11, when you have 9 land to play, is to draw a 1-drop, and it's actually desirable. Faceless Haven comes in.
Yeah. I kind of like this.
I mean, when you have an extra one back to block, yeah, I guess it's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, and Ash is like, I'll take it. 11. Sounds good.
Yeah. Yeah, lots of life to play with here. Just waiting for anything to resolve.
I wonder if Ash is going to now try and resolve a Kenrith just because of the life gain element of it.
All right, trade happens. Well, yeah, I don't know. I was going to say if it was going to be Karuga, it probably might have come down before the attack, but it still comes down after.
Yeah, maybe this was just Ash trying to see if there's a flash block or something weird.
All right, the players will clarify that
it looks like
Karuga does draw off of permanents that cost 3 or more, not creatures that draw 3 or more.
Mm-hmm. And is others as well, so it doesn't count itself.
Right.
Spectral Sailor. We've talked about this race a bunch, and Ash does have both Kenrith and Omnath, but notably no land, which is needed to activate the Kenrith, and no land for the Omnath trigger either. So Ash doesn't have as much life as it looks like they might have. This is really close to lethal if you activate both Faceless Havens, right?
Well, let's see. It would be how much in the air? 3. So
yeah,
there would have to be Karuga would have to block. Instead, it's going to be all right. Is that a combat research?
Yeah, another combat research.
Okay. On the tougher creature, so it can't get Bone Crushed, and in for just 3, but
yeah, if Daniel drew another counterspell that can answer this Cavalier or the Kenrith, it could be a repeat of last game.
Yeah.
Also, worth noting, Daniel, if Ash goes for Kenrith and let's say haste and tries to present 2 lethal attackers, and Daniel drew Aether Gust, then we can just gust the Karuga too. So Ash has to really think through all the permutations of what the things are, because if you also cast the Cavalier, then it could get gusted too. So it's really hard to figure out these sort of spots. And one of the big strengths of playing the Mono Blue Spirit deck is your opponent has to do this sort of mental gymnastics.
All right, so we're going straight into combat here, and Karuga's coming in. Daniel moves to block, not wanting to get killed by a stomp, and Crew is out of here. And yeah, and now with an empty board,
Ash has Anger of the Gods.
oh, that would be very, very strong.
Yeah. Kind of a big one.
3. Would that mean there'd have to be a follow-up, right? Or else a land would. Oh, no, there's only one Faceless Haven left, isn't there?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
now we have Omnath still lined up, and Ash is just like, I gotta make these plays. I can't play on the counter spells anymore. And if no land, so Ash's life still, under the gun here. But
Wow.
is
Daniel had Rattle Chains, so removal was covered, but not Anger of the Gods.
Yeah, pretty different there. And we see a slam in for 6.
I mean, I guess you have to block, right? If there's a Flash Lord, you're done.
Yeah, it's such a hard, like, if you don't block, you're taking a big risk, but you do have a chance to lethal with Kinrith.
Yeah.
But if there's even just like, a Geistlight snare and you have to spin the mana so it doesn't die, you don't get the haste. So
Right.
yeah, it does feel like a forced block, even though we know that it probably isn't going to be that. So I think Daniel drew a land. Huh.
Well, Ash finally drew a land. That would have been useful last turn. Here's Kenrith. Yeah, it is a land.
So this beats Geistlight Snare, and now, Ash is going to race. Okay. And then gives it +1 counter.
Okay, this match is still not done. These have been 2 long games. We'll get game 3 rolling in just a moment. I would have to imagine there probably wasn't a ton of time left for the last game.
Yeah, looking at the clock, I'm thinking about it. It's got to be like, sub 5 minutes or whatever. And, these have been grindy games with players playing at a good pace too. Yeah. So we're going to see what happens here. We might see Ash jam more just because time is an issue. You need to win that round to make top 8.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, Daniel has drawn, well, just enough counters the first game, just short in game 2. And there's, okay. So the early Curious Obsession, we didn't see this in the first 2 games. It came more like around turn 7. This is a vulnerability.
Yeah, and you see Ash head in hands, like, do I fight over this? Because, it could go so wrong so easily. And if it's something like Spell Pierce, what are you going to do? Now it's Mystical Dispute on it. And we are going to see guys like counter it, spend the 2 mana. The Curious Session's not in play yet, but
yeah. Okay. So now we are cleared of Anger of the Gods and Stomp. So it's got to be Leyline Binding, right?
Yeah, it's got to be Binding or a combination of stomps. We got to got to stomp the yard, if you would.
Yeah. Well, that's tough to do on turn 3. So this Supreme Phantom with boost here is likely to get in. Daniel's going to start netting cards here. And this is the game that Daniel probably wants to be playing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Daniel a little heavier on lands, but as we've seen, this deck can actually use the lands to pretty good effect. So not the end of the world to have so many in hand, especially when one's Otawara, like we talked about this channel land, so impactful, especially when your opponent has to spend 4 or 5 mana on all their plays that matter. Having an unsummon is really good in that spot.
Yeah, Muscleman Wander off the top. That's okay. Let's see if that's the player for something better. Okay, Shacklegeist.
Yeah. And if you're Ash, there's something else in hand because it started to get grabbed and picked different. So there's at least one more creature. Looks like the Stomp is going to... Well, it can't kill Shacklegeist because Shacklegeist is a 3/3.
Wow. That's...
Well, yeah.
This will be... Obviously, Daniel realized it right away. This will be...
Yeah, it's an easy judge fix too, right?
It's an easy fix. No illegal play happened or no illegal spell was cast. It's certainly legal to stomp a 3/3. It just isn't going to die. And,
it's probably a situation where the judge just gives them a failure to maintain game state warning, and then you move on with your slap on your wrist, and nothing really big happened. It's not like, this isn't 1993 or whatever, and, you put in the graveyard, dim the rules, kid, grow up, like the card cannot be there. Daniel is cheating to put it in the graveyard. Maybe Daniel has Treasure Cruise, we don't know. He said you're not allowed to put it there.
Well, I don't know how it worked in 93, but in like 94, 95, when I was first learning how to play when I was young, the damage didn't heal at the end of the turn because we didn't know the rules. So it would still be valid. It would still have, a 3/3 with 2 damage on it for, until the end of the game or until, somebody else pointed out 3 months later that that's not how the game worked.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah, Magic back in the day sounded so different.
Well,
I don't
I
even know
mean,
how y'all tracked it.
well, learning how to play pre-internet, before like internet was a big thing. Yeah, we didn't know any of the rules. We didn't even know the cards. So like
Oh yeah.
when people open up, there was no like spoiler list. When somebody opens a card, we're like, "Whoa, look at this!" And then there were rumors of cards that didn't turn out to exist.
That's so
Yeah,
sick.
we were very dumb.
The rumors of card thing though is so sick. Like, yeah, some guy beat me with this thing. And, and it might even just be them misremembering it, right? Because
Right.
Magic cards back then are also complicated. It's like, yeah, it was this big dragon, and he just spent a bunch of mana and it killed me.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know?
I remember. Yeah, I mean, I remember the rumor that I remember was my friend group talked about somebody else told somebody, "Oh, there's a card called Shovel that could save a creature from being buried by like a terror." Yeah, that didn't
Oh,
exist.
I
But
can
of
see how
course,
someone gets that design though.
yeah, we all believed it. All
Okay,
right. So
Aether Gust in the Fires.
yeah, Ether Gust on Fires and Ash is going to be just hauling in new cards every single turn here. Chat asking about deck lists. Once we are in the top 8, deck lists will go live on Melee, and you can look at anyone's deck list in the entire event or yesterday's event. This is still, we're in time shifted the last round of the Swiss. They actually may be available now. I don't know, as this match has obviously finished in real time, but Mason and I and you watching don't know the results yet.
I was gonna say I see Norm walking around in the background with the camera, so I think some pictures have been taken. So the top 8 might be known, but we'll figure that out pretty soon ourselves here. Right now, we gotta see if Daniel or Ash is part of that. Daniel hasn't drawn that many more counterspells since the opening hand, and now just has an army of creatures.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, certainly unlike how some of their games have gone. Here's Ascendant Spirit joining the board. Angular Gods, okay. Supreme Phantom would survive, and Mausoleum Wanderer would tax it quite a bit.
I almost wonder if you're supposed to Curious Obsession the Mausoleum Wanderer to play around Anger.
I thought about that too. Here's a Fires.
Fires is going to be good, as we know. Ash is breathing a sigh of relief. The whole deck's unlocked now. What are we going to do? But it looks like Ash's hand is just threat.
All right, here's Kenrith. That's great. Ash is 11. How much damage is on the board in the air? It looks like 2, 5, 7, 9. So it's potential lethal. I think Daniel wants to spend a bunch of mana on stuff.
Well, we can Shackle Geist cap the Kenrith too.
Oh, that's true. Yep.
So we can level this up and then.
Well, okay, we didn't do that. So Spirit did level up. We missed the tap. We can level to flying level anyway.
Yeah.
And doing some counting.
And then with Curious Obsession 2, I have to imagine that's lethal. And yeah, Ash taken
Okay.
down. Well played by both players, but Daniel navigating that game there with even just less resources that really matter. Ash did have the anger.
Yeah. So Daniel Kristoff will advance to the top 8. We're going to take a short break, and we're going to go over the other 7 decks. They're going to join Daniel in the top 8, find a bracket for you guys, and then we're going to play out quarterfinals, semifinals, and finals all tonight. So come on back, join Mason and I for the rest of the elimination matches. This is Nerd Rage Gaming. We'll be right back.